I only work at one firm, but I know that the lawyers of the Elias Law Group are prepared. We are ready for this. We've been ready. We have defeated President Trump more times than I can count, and we'll do it again.
Welcome to the Practivist Pod, the practice of activism made practical.
Today we talk about the Epstein upset that's roiling MAGA world and bringing us all together, a vicious rescissions package in the Senate and how it relates to disaster preparedness, and Trump's sinking economy.
And then Steve has a great conversation about the fight to protect our vote with one of the top election lawyers in the country, Elias Law Group Partner Jackie Lopez. I'm Jess Craven.
I'm Steve Pearson.
Stay strong. It won't be long. Yeah, yeah. We will build a better world.
Hey, just a reminder for everyone, we are on Substack. We would be very grateful for your support there, and you'll get an ad-free version of our show. So I wanted to go ahead and sell that option to you right off the top. We also have a call-in number. We want to hear what you're doing, how you're getting involved, what your experience is like. Share it on our voicemail and we'll play it on the show. That number is 818-824-4286. And we got a lot to talk about. Should we give people things to do first, or should we talk about all this stuff and then get them upset so that they want to do things? What do you think?
Oh, let's get them upset first. I think that's always a good thing to do. Did you ever listen to the Prairie Home Companion? Do you remember how Garrison Keillor used to always start that off with, "It's been a quiet week in Lake Wobegon." And I just really want for one time to be able to say, it's been a quiet week in American politics.
Well,
and,
I remember doing a podcast during the Biden administration, and the numbers, our listenership went way down because it was like it's quiet. We're doing stuff. We're passing legislation. We're fixing the economy, and now we have new numbers from the Trump administration, inflation, tariff induced prices now. Seems like he's not keeping his promise to lower all the prices on day one. So
oh yeah the whole economic promise of Donald Trump, I found it astonishing that people were ever buying what he was selling on that, but man, it must be really disappointing if you believed. And to be totally non-sarcastic about it, some people did believe. Some people genuinely, people are hurting in this country, and there are people who were like, I believe he can make my life better, and I believe him when he tells me that he cares about this. That's your big mistake, is believing that Trump actually cares about you. That is always a mistake. And now he's like, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care whether these tariffs really work or not. Like, for me, it's kind of fun. I can play the stock market a little bit. He doesn't care. He's never been to a grocery store. He doesn't this is not real for him. Yeah. We're watching prices go up. We're watching the dollar go down. I was just reading an article today about how the dollar, it's no longer advantageous to have dollars when you go and travel. It used to be that you could go to other countries and you'd be like, woo, I can buy so much more with my money. Not anymore. Now the opposite is the case. It's the lowest it's been in 50 years.
Yeah. It's like, for folks who are just feeling desperate because they're really struggling, they just result to desperate measures. So it's kind of like taking all of your money and putting it on a number at a casino, except the number that you're putting it on is a Trump casino, and Trump took a business that always wins, casinos, and managed to bankrupt that one too. So, it's... Yeah.
100%. You bet on the wrong number, and now we're all bankrupt. We're all going bankrupt now because of your big gamble. It's deeply frustrating, as I'm sure everybody listening to this agrees. But the economic numbers are abysmal. Prices are continuing to go up. So, and Trump, is juggling several crises at the same time. So he's got that. He's got the Epstein thing, which, I never thought we would actually talk about on this podcast, but it sounds like we might have to talk about it on this podcast.
Not only am I excited to talk about it, and not just because of our favorite word Schadenfreude of it all, but also because of the substance of it. It genuinely is the first time that he has really lost hold of his core base and the narrative in his core base. And so, we try on this show not to get caught up in the shiny thing and to focus on where we can be effective and where we can do our work and also stay positive and build resilience. Right now it's making sure that we keep this narrative going because it's really hurting him. And, I don't know about you. There's a lot, everyone's been watching it, so we don't have to rehash exactly what happened. We've all seen the unhinged, tweet. I actually talk about it with, Jackie Lopez in our interview as it relates to how he's going to pivot on some really, the greatest hits of his enemies and false claims of voter fraud and all of that stuff, and how Mark Elias and the Elias Group are preparing for that. So there's a lot of substance there. But there's a lot for us to keep amplifying on this. And I'm really interested to see what, God, can I call him our fellow podcaster? I hate to say that. I hate to put us on the same level, but Dan Bongino, I'm wondering what's going to happen in these coming weeks with him, because I actually like he made his meal off of these conspiracy theories, especially this one, and has done very well for himself. He makes a lot of money and had a very cushy life recording into a microphone for a couple of hours and spending a couple of hours in the gym and doing whatever else he does with his day. And I heard him on Fox a few weeks ago complaining about how long the hours are at his job as deputy FBI. Did you hear that? And saying that he doesn't get to see his family, and Cash is there even longer than he is. And it's like, deputy FBI director is a hard, time-consuming job. It's like, by design. But
yes, turns out that job has work requirements also. I thought they were all about the work requirements. Yes, we are asking you to work for your paycheck. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, surprise. So it'll be interesting to see if he actually does stay in that job, or if he uses this as an excuse to go back to his cushy lifestyle. But I mean, that's the least of all of it. But what are you seeing on this that you think's important to mention?
Well, I think that there's a small Venn diagram where the MAGA base, actually it's not small, but where we all kind of agree, and we all are sort of interested in similar things. And I think here we have this sort of general idea that like the rules are rigged in favor of the wealthy and the powerful, and that Jeffrey Epstein, wealthy and powerful, and then there's all these kind of cloudy figures around him. Now, the MAGA people, for whatever reason, cannot see that Donald Trump is right there in the foreground next to him, but they imagine a whole bunch of other powerful people around him, and they want to know which of them were involved. And I think we all agree that we want to know who's involved. I think for some people in the base, this is part of a sort of a bigger conspiracy theory about Democrats, which is, whatever. We all want the truth to come out, maybe for different reasons. Maybe we have different motives for wanting the truth to come out. But I think everybody can agree that the rules are rigged for the wealthy and powerful. And maybe in this particular instance, MAGA has actually had enough of it. And as somebody I was reading, I think it was Tegan Goddard, was writing about this and saying it might be that for once Trump has actually underestimated his voters. Because, it's clear that the assumption was, if I tell them that I want this story to go away, they will stop asking about it because they do what I say. Right. And if I say suddenly there's no story there, they'll believe me because, they're dumb. This is what Trump obviously believes about his base. And in this case, they're sort of, I think, surprising him. Like, oh, maybe not entirely dumb and maybe not entirely willing to back down. Now, we'll see how long that lasts. Are they going to actually keep going for this? If Trump keeps saying, I don't want you to talk about this, and apparently Fox News has received instructions to not talk about it, so they've stopped talking about it completely. Yeah. So will the MAGA base
Charlie
keep
Kirk
it alive?
did a turnaround
Charlie
on
Kirk.
that too. Yeah.
Right. So it's a matter of Trump is getting to people and saying, look, I've got a lot of shit on you. So if you don't drop this, I'm going to, whatever he's doing. But there do seem to be some people who are genuinely interested who maybe are not subject to that kind of pressure. We'll see.
Yeah, I think you're right about that Venn diagram. That little place where we all intersect happens to be wanting to hold child sex traffickers accountable and know who those people are and not let them get away with it. So,
yeah, 100%.
That I'll take whatever bridges this gulf between us. I'll take it.
Yeah, I do worry. I worry a little, and I've even been guilty of it myself. Like, you want to find this line where you're not hitting it so hard that Republicans go, oh, well, now Democrats are in on it, so now we're going to band together. And, it's more important to fight them than it is to get to this essential truth. So it's one of those situations where I almost feel like we don't need to hit it that hard. Like, they're doing their own, it's all kind of taking care of itself over there. So I'm enjoying watching it, but it's a delicate balance because there is a point where if Democrats get too invested in it, then they'll all gather the wagons and sort of say we don't care anymore because Democrats do. So whatever. Right. There's a lot of other stuff to worry about.
Yeah, there is, and you're right. I mean, it's like we still want to keep the kindling burning underneath it without, playing our hand too much on it. But, Ro Khanna, who was on our show last week, introduced the resolution to release the Epstein files, have Congress do that. And Republicans blocked it twice. Two votes.
They killed it twice. Yes.
They killed it twice. So
they shot it in the chest and in the head. Sorry, that's a little violent. But yeah, they did.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what they did.
They did. And then they turned it around. Oh, man, there was something so gross on social media that they turned it around to say that Democrats were voting in favor of, airing child porn or something that was just so, they're very good at messaging. They're very good at finding a way to frame even the most nefarious thing. Yeah, they're spin masters. They are masters of spin. So, but again, the question is, it's Trump's base who really wants this information. So, will they fall for that? We'll see. So far, they've been pretty savvy about not falling for distractions. So we'll see if that one gets them. And,
there's substance there. Like I said, it's not all just a spectacle. But let's talk about some real substance that's happening in the Senate.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, right. We have been, I think we all have been exhausted by the big bastard bill. Mm-hmm. This is a rescissions package, basically to claw back some funding that was already appropriated. And it's very frustrating because this is funding that was passed. And once Congress has appropriated funding, usually that's it. It goes out. But in this case, they're trying to claw it back because Trump wants to claw it back because, spending is out of control, even though those tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires are really important. But, spending to help people is unacceptable. This PBS public broadcasting funding, and it's about $1 billion for public broadcasting. And the reason there's also some USAID funding, the reason it's so fucked up is especially in light of these Texas floods. These radio stations are a way for people to access emergency information when they can't get Wi-Fi. When you've got your crank radio going, that's where you go to find out what the hell is going on. It can be life or death. I mean, we all love public broadcasting for a million reasons, but this alone, in the light of these horrific floods, in the light of the fact that, New York City was basically just underwater and people died in New Jersey in their cars. Yeah. My friend just visited her mother in Iowa for 2 days, had 5 flights canceled due to weather in both directions, and then was in a major tornado right next to where she was staying while she was there. Electrical storms when she was flying out. The weather is insane.
Yeah.
And insane. And we're all at risk. No one is not at risk. And yet this $1 billion, which is pocket change for a federal government, is going to be cut. I mean, it's not pocket change, but relatively speaking, pocket change so that, so that rich people can keep getting tax cuts, and so that people in rural areas don't know what the hell's going on. The National Weather Service is already defunded. FEMA's fucked up, but now you can't turn on your radio either because Republicans don't want you to have that either.
Yeah. And, and as it comes to PBS funding, Republicans have been trying to roll that back for a long time. Seems like every Republican administration that comes in tries to do that. And, it's just for so many reasons important, but I think what you just articulated the most. And I'll just make a pitch right now to folks. This is just my opinion, but if you have to watch one bit of news, like if you're throughout your day, you're not going to go put yourself through the trauma of a 24-hour MSNBC feed like I did the last time Trump was elected. But you want to stay informed, just watch one show. PBS NewsHour, for my money, is the best place to spend your time doing that. Just saying. So
while it's around, while it lasts, Steve.
so let's support it while it lasts. And,
and can I just say one other thing before we
Sure.
go on, which is that I grew up on Sesame Street. Like that show for me was completely formative. Mr. Rogers, Sesame Street, those shows, that was it for us when we were kids. There weren't a million channels with a million cartoons. We watched those shows. They nurtured us. Everybody who grew up watching them remembers, many, many things that they learned or they heard on Sesame Street. The fact that Republicans are trying to dumb our kids down by taking away this masterful educational programming is just, they want us dumb. The dumber we are, the more likely we'll vote for them. And that is cynical and destructive.
It's true.
Beyond belief.
It's just true. The attacks on education from Republicans have been happening for a long, long time. It is by design because they want an unelected electorate, an uneducated electorate, I should say.
Yeah.
And
they'd love an unelected one. Well,
yeah, I was gonna say,
they would like to not have to run in elections themselves. But yes, for sure.
Both things. And of course, we saw, SCOTUS giving Trump another win around the Department of Education and essentially going to be decimating the Department of Education. They are eradicating language learning and making English the official language, and that's going to be devastating for ESL programs all over our country. And all of it, like, maybe it's cynical, like you said, but it's definitely cynical on their part. But they don't want an educated electorate. This is all by design. They want control, and they want profit for private schools.
Yes,
and
right.
So it's about control. It's about the grift. It always is. And we're going to have a lot of damage, a lot of pieces to put back together when we get back in power, and hopefully some opportunity to do things that really lift up people and help those who are left behind by our education system.
Yeah, it's fixable. It'll take some time, but we can fix it and we can make it better than it was. That's the thing I hold on to every day, is just that the pendulum is swinging so far to the right now that when it swings back, I want it to just swing all the way back into, the next galaxy, and just, Medicare for all, free, subsidized childcare, like whatever, just like, let's just do it. Billionaire tax. Anyway,
that's my hope, and that's my vision. That's what I really believe can happen in the future. But unfortunately, a lot of people are going to get hurt, and there's a lot to fight right now. In the meantime, so we will. And I'm grateful for you, and grateful for all of our listeners who step up every day and do what they can. We have some action items for you, but let's tease that out a little bit longer and hear your reason for hope first.
Oh, I'll tell you what my reason for hope is. This is so exciting. So there's a small airlines called Avelo Airlines, who I'd never heard of before, but they started participating in deportation flights, these awful flights that sound so chilling and brutal, where they're putting, grabbing people up in ICE raids, putting them in detention, and then throwing them on planes and flying them to wherever. Avelo was participating in this, and they were flying out of Burbank Airport, which is right near where we live.
Yep.
Also out of Sonoma Airport, which I did not realize until today. Anyway, some people I know and some other people I don't know started protesting in front of the Burbank Airport every weekend. And I don't know if there were protests up in Sonoma. I would hazard a guess there might well have been. There's been boycotts. I know New Hampshire, which is where Avelo is based, has been doing a lot of stuff with the legislature to try to sort of punish them for what they're doing and repeal some tax credits, I believe. Anyway, they announced yesterday that they are pulling out of Burbank Airport and Sonoma Airport and sort of downscaling their business. It's unclear whether they're actually stopping their deportations, but I consider it a victory that they have been chased out of 2 airports and that their name has been permanently tarnished. I mean, I don't know what their aspirations were, but you couldn't pay me enough to get on a fucking Avelo flight after this. And that is something that people have managed to do by amplifying this situation. So I think that's something to be hopeful about.
It's amazing. And thank you again to listeners and activists and everyone who, went out there and protest and put pressure on them and boycotted and didn't buy those tickets on Avelo. And, that shows the power that we have to actually make change and to put pressure, all the pocketbook, the purse, the putting pressure on these corporations. That's what we really can do. We've seen it with Tesla, and that's exciting. And Burbank's right down the road from me. I actually took an Avelo flight once years ago before all this happened, when they first came to Burbank, and promptly deleted the app, when this all happened and stuff from my phone. Yeah. But
way to ruin a brand forever. I mean, really. Anyway, but what is your reason for hope this week, Steve?
Well, we've kind of touched on a bunch of it. It has to do with the MAGA revolt. It has to do with right-wing Nazi assholes like Nick Fuentes saying MAGA is dead. And it has to do with Trump losing his core base, but also coupling that with the numbers we're seeing on immigration right now, which is Republicans' signature issue. That's what they use as a culture war issue. That's what they use as a dividing line. That's an issue that they always run on, and they're really strong on. It's the otherizing. It's racist. It's, making people feel like someone else coming into our country is taking their jobs and taking their opportunity, and that's why they're struggling. And they're able to ride that successfully. And they are so underwater on it because of these just inhumane, cruel, just brutal actions that they are taking. Our country isn't having it. Republicans aren't having it. Independents aren't having it. And we're seeing high favorability for the importance that immigrants have in our country, and very, very, very low favorability for how Trump is handling this. So, you take that. You take, sadly, how expensive everything is right now, prices going up. You take the MAGA revolt around Epstein, and, it gives me a tremendous amount of hope on the trajectory that we're on. If the midterms were happening, in the next month, it would be a fucking sweep. He does not have the votes that he needs. So.
Right. Well, and it's only going to get worse. I mean, there's no universe in which this situation gets better over the next year. So, I think that, this is why we're seeing this desperate Texas gerrymander and all of these, people say, oh, there's not going to be midterms next year. I'm like, really? Why are they trying to gerrymander the hell out of Texas to pick up 5 seats? They're terrified and they know what's going to happen. And you know what? Take your 5 seats in Texas. First of all, that, from what I've read, is something that could backfire wildly on them, because they're pulling Republicans from certain districts to make other districts more red, making the districts they're taking them from more flippable for us. But also, I think that this anger about immigration is just going to continue building. They're not going to get less vicious and brutal.
No, it's going to get worse. It's
going to get way worse. I mean, it's already, you and I both know that, like, Los Angeles is a nightmare every day. And we're the future of the rest of the country. Like, what they're doing to us right now, it is it's brutal. What has it been going on for 40, 50 days now? And it's just relentless. It's a relentless assault on our city and the people who live here. It is a relentless exercise in cruelty. It is wildly unpopular now. Wait till it's everywhere. Wait till all of our produce is rotting in the fields because there's no one left to pick it. And you can't get home health care because there's no one there to work those jobs. And you can't get childcare because your nanny has been deported. And you can't get, fill in the blank because they're all gone. Like, you think Americans appreciate immigrants now? Wait till they're all gone.
Yeah.
And suddenly, yes, I think we will see a great awakening, which it's extremely frustrating to me. It's going to take this to accomplish. But nevertheless, it would be nice if people could just see it for what it is, which is that it's always been a gift to our country. But Americans, they have to be hit over the head.
They do. Some of them do. And so, it just gives me hope that we're getting on the same page on some fundamental issues that, to your point, it shouldn't be that hard for us to be on the same page about, but here we are. So, and you talked about, all the work they're doing to try to gerrymander and cheat and for the midterms, and people's fears that, what if there's not an election, or what if there's martial law and elections are suspended or something like that. I cover all of that with Jackie Lopez from the Elias Law Group, and she's brilliant and has some really great insight. Before we go into that interview, though, as promised, we have some action items for you. First of all, if you're listening to this as the show drops on Thursday, today is Good Trouble Lives On Day, Thursday, July 17th. So go to Good Trouble Lives On and find an event if you haven't already. It's to honor John Lewis, and it's to continue to make our voices heard. And the other thing that I want to highlight, we'll talk about it a little bit more next week too. If you're in the Los Angeles area, which I know a lot of our listeners are, Blue Wave California has our first congressional forum with Congressmember George Whitesides and Dave Min, and talk about building for the midterms. We need to do it early, and this is an opportunity to come hear from those Congress members in person. Sorry if you're out of town, but come into town. LA's great. LA's wonderful. It's actually not burning. You should come visit us. But I'll have the link for that event in the show notes as well.
Yeah, all things considered, we're having a very nice weather summer. I feel like we're actually getting off easy right now compared to, a lot of places. But yes, those are both really important events. And we are really being urged to turn out at the Good Trouble event wherever we are. It's so very, very important. And of course, fundraising now for those congressional seats so that we can pummel them next year is really important as well. Like I said, that pummel
That's the key. Pummel them. So this is the one thing that I was talking about with Jackie, and I don't want to spoil it, but she was talking about all the things they're doing to protect and all the, lawyering it takes to count every ballot and make sure there's nothing going on nefarious. And I said, which is true, the best way we can all protect against and help her work is by making it a fucking blowout, is by pummeling them.
For sure.
Is by making it not even close. So that's what we're going to build for now until the midterms, is we're going to make sure that happens. So
100%.
Having said all of that, here comes our interview with Jackie Lopez. Jackie Lopez is a partner at Elias Law Group. She focuses her practice on laws governing federal candidates and office holders, political party committees, and voting rights. Jackie is one of the nation's leading federal political lawyers and serves as outside counsel to the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. Jackie, I know how incredibly busy you are, so thank you so much for taking some time with us.
Absolutely. Very happy to be here.
I almost feel guilty anytime I reach out to Elias Law Group, because the work you're doing is so important and there doesn't seem to be time for anything else. But, our listeners and people who get active really want to know what's going on and how we can support the work that you're doing also. So I want to start with kind of the newest, shiniest thing, which is the Epstein files.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because Mark Elias in his Democracy Docket newsletter broke down why this is really not just a distraction, but a really serious problem for Trump that is going to push him to go down an even more aggressive path with the FBI and DOJ to come after his enemies and double, triple, quadruple down on his false election interference claims. I want to read among the other unhinged things he wrote on Truth Social. I want to read this. He said, Kash Patel and the FBI must be focused on investigating voter fraud, political corruption, Act Blue, the rigged and stolen election of 2020, ... So, it's his greatest hits, but going after, you mentioned Act Blue in there, stuff that's foundational to our Democratic fundraising. How are you all looking to bolster the work you're already doing around these false claims?
Yeah, it's a big question, and it's a great one, right? So I obviously couldn't agree more with Mark that what we're going to see is just a doubling down by President Trump on these efforts to use the FBI, the Department of Justice, really the strongest parts of his administration to suppress the voice of the American voters, right? We're going to see it by them investigating claims of voter fraud, of illegal election results, of Act Blue. And a lot of the work we're doing here at the Elias Law Group is to prevent that, to protect those voices of the voters more than ever. And it's, I think Act Blue is one thing in particular worth calling out about that because it's something very different than what we've seen in the past, right? We have seen the president talk about voter fraud, false election results, and it's worth talking about that too, for sure. But the Act Blue piece is really interesting, and we're seeing the president go after the platform that grassroots donors use to contribute to Democratic candidates, right? A huge advantage of the Democratic Party is we have the support of grassroots donors. All over the country, they give with $5, $7, $10 increments, and they do it using this incredibly popular platform called Act Blue. The president doesn't like that. And so he's directed the Department of Justice and the FBI to launch an investigation, right? Because he sees that his political opponents have this advantage, that advantage being the actual support of the voters, the individuals donating and using that to speak up. So as a campaign finance lawyer, that to me is just a new disgusting level. Because again, it is absolutely voters' First Amendment right. It's an important part of our democracy that you believe in a candidate, you believe in a cause. You can do that by donating $5, $7. It's not just the billionaires that get to decide who gets support in our election. So I think we shouldn't sleep on that part of the comment because a lot is in that quick reference to Act Blue. It's not just voters. It's now we're going after supporters,
Yeah, and just to jump in on the Act Blue piece too, I think one thing that we can all really do is educate people on what Act Blue is. Even amongst our Democratic ranks, they have done such a good job, sullying or just questioning what Act Blue is. I was at a farmer's market. I my day job, I'm executive director of Blue Wave California. So we raise money for candidates. We use Act Blue. And I was at a farmer's market yesterday talking to someone who wanted to donate. And they're like, well, if I'm donating to Act Blue, how do we know where the money's going? And I had to really educate them about it's really just it's a processor of these funds. They don't make decisions. We're donating directly to the candidates. They're just a way for us to sort of like PayPal or a credit card,
exactly.
processor.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Act Blue has no control over where the funds go at X, just like a payment processor. So when a donor goes online or on their phone, I'm a millennial, so I'm like online, but usually it's on your phone these days.
Yeah.
Because they care about a cause, they care about an issue group, a candidate. They pick where the money is going. All Act Blue does is process it. So the idea that something nefarious is going on there is really just a politicization of the process. And it's sad because it's a very secure way to give. It's the primary way the Democratic supporters give.
Well, that kind of feeds in. I was going to ask you this a little bit later, but there is a case that you all are working on, and I think it might come actually a surprise to a lot of our listeners that Democrats actually have the candidate fundraising advantage when it comes to donors, individual donors to candidates. But of course, the GOP does better with super PAC money. Hence the oligarchs who can funnel millions and millions of dollars into these campaigns. And right now, the GOP is trying to get rid of the limits that these PACs can give to candidates. And at the same time, Trump's DOJ is really, correct me if I get this wrong, just basically going to look the other way when money's effectively being laundered into these Republican campaigns. So can you talk about what we're doing to fight that?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked this question because I think this story is getting missed in a admittedly very busy news cycle, but it's a huge deal. So the Republicans for a long time have been trying to strike down a limit on how much political party committees can spend in coordination with their campaigns. It sounds innocent, right? It's the political party. Of course, parties are going to support their campaigns. That's all good and well. But the reason the Republicans want this limit to go away is what you said, right? Which is that Democratic candidates are able to raise so much more money than their Republican counterparts, which people often don't know. You talk about money in politics, and again, because super PACs raise and spend so much, it kind of washes out and it makes it look like the Republican side is raising more money. But when you look at the actual candidate fundraising, Democrats are far and away better than Republicans at raising money, again, from those grassroots donors, from actual individual Americans making their voice heard. And so the Republicans have been trying now for a long time, this is not a new law, to strike down this bedrock rule on how much parties can spend on behalf of their candidates. And the reason they want to do it is the limit to political party committees themselves, the contribution limit, is much bigger. So these big mega donors can write these huge checks to party committees, including through those huge joint fundraising committees, which, since I don't use a term that I'm not explaining, there is basically a rule where you can put a bunch of committees into one mega committee and add up all their contribution limits, right? So we've seen this during many presidential cycles where you can stack state party committees, the national party committees into a joint fundraising agreement with a candidate. And all of a sudden, a donor can write a check for $900,000, right? We're not talking anymore of the $3,000 candidate limit. It's $900,000 that can go to this mega committee that can then spend money. And what the Republicans want is for that $900,000 check to be able to be spent all in coordination with the candidate on their TV ads, on their budget, right? Just pay their bills.
And when you say in coordination, just to make another distinction for folks, those committees, when they have that money, they're not allowed to coordinate directly with the campaign. So they may operate an independent expenditure on their own, but they can't really communicate with the campaign.
Exactly, because when you are communicating with the campaign and spending money, the law treats that as subject to the contribution limits, right? That's how you preserve the integrity of those candidate limits. So the Republicans want that rule to go away. They want to be able to raise huge checks, spend all the money in coordination with their candidates with no limit. And they're trying to get the United States Supreme Court to do it. So the way they've done that, they brought this case. It's gone all the way up through Ohio. J.D. Vance is actually a plaintiff, as a fun fact. In the case back from when he was a Senate candidate. Which people forget, but he ran for Senate back in the day. And this case came up through Ohio. The court did not disagree with Republicans because this is settled law. The Supreme Court has already weighed in 20 years ago and said this limit on spending is legal. It's really important to protect those low candidate limits. And the Republicans are trying again. Why? Because they have the White House. And so now this case, for the second time, comes up through our court system, gets applied to the Supreme Court for cert. As I think a lot of your listeners probably know, the Supreme Court gets just endless applications for cases to take, just so many. What is really unique about this one is the Trump's Department of Justice filed a brief saying they're not going to defend the law, that they think the law is unconstitutional, which is extraordinary. It's worth taking a pause there. This is the Solicitor General, whose job is to enforce federal statute, saying, I will not defend, I will not enforce the statute, right? Which in my opinion, it's probably something that tipped off the Supreme Court that like, hey, this is an odd case. And they granted cert. They took the case. So now the Supreme Court is going to look brand new again at whether we can constitutionally limit the amount that political parties can spend in coordination with our candidates. And if they strike that limit down, it is going to fundamentally change how elections are funded in this country. It's really difficult to overstate how just radical it will be if, big if the Supreme Court does this, because candidates will no longer have to raise their own money to fund their own campaigns. They can, in full coordination with party committees, let the party committee just write the checks, pay the bills, use those MAGA donors. It'll drown out the voices of grassroots donors, which is exactly what the Republicans want. And it is a terrible and a sad thing that the Solicitor General did what they did, and that we're in the situation we're in. But we're in the case. We're going to be there. We're going to fight. And again, try and protect our democratic system, because that fight is more important than ever.
Really is. And it's like, Citizens United 2.0 on steroids, whatever. Use whatever.
Exactly. It's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're already in just such a anti-democratic stance with the amount of money that gets spent by these oligarchs in our elections as it is. So thank you for that work, and I'm glad that everyone knows about it. We do need to amplify that more.
For sure.
And the other thing is, I want to talk about, you began your political career as a voter protection lawyer.
I did.
Trump has also issued executive orders related to elections in an effort to just usurp the power of the states. Can you talk about the lawsuits against these executive orders and where they currently stand?
Yeah. So, as you said, I started my career is a generous term, as an unpaid intern back in 2012 on Barack Obama's presidential reelect. Moved out to Chicago.
That's a big start. That's a big start.
Well, unpaid being the key word there, back in those days.
Yeah. Well,
but yeah, voter protection has always been at the heart of what I've wanted to do with my legal degree. And it is why I'm at Elias Law Group, and it's a big part of what I do. And I love it. It's critically important. And a big part of that work right now, as you said, is fighting back against an executive order the president issued to really override state law and the will of the state legislatures, and impose some really draconian burdens on voting. So this executive order says that states that allow voters to postmark and put a ballot in the mail by election day, right? You always got to do that. But states that give a couple of days of grace period for that ballot to actually arrive in the mail, that's no longer valid, right? Which is not a power the president has, right? The Constitution vests the power to dictate the terms of elections with the states and with Congress. But the president doesn't like mail voting, because you know who votes by mail? Democrats. So he passes this executive order saying no more of that. Ballots have to arrive by
Republicans used to like mail-in voting, by the way, when it favored Republicans.
Yeah, we love it as long as our voters are using it. Yeah.
Yeah. All of a sudden, it's a bad thing.
Yeah. No, all of a sudden it's terrible and insecure, and you can't count on it, all the lies. So, that would disenfranchise just huge numbers of Americans, especially given the delays in the postal system. All of the things that we know can cause mail ballots to get, in a couple of days late, even though they wrote it on election day. He imposed a documentary proof of citizenship requirement on the federal voter registration form. The key thing here that I think can also get missed is, in theory, this isn't a big deal, right? Everyone knows you have to be a U.S. citizen to vote. The thing that makes this so bad is the types of proof you have to provide are really hard. You can use a birth certificate. You cannot use a passport, right? I don't know about you, but I have no idea my birth certificate is, right? I'm 36. I'd have to call my mom. I have no clue. I'm
I just
married.
found it. I was just visiting my parents in D.C., my mom last week, and she actually had found my birth certificate. So
there you go. You'll be ready.
It's right next to me here in my office. So I'm good. Everyone else
You're
is
good.
not
but
so
the
much.
rest of us, or goodness forbid you're married and your name no longer matches your birth certificate, right?
Right.
It's types of proof that a lot of voters simply don't have, and it's just unnecessarily difficult. So we are in court. We have already won. The National Democratic Party committees, to their credit, just immediately rushed in, met Trump at the courthouse. We got a preliminary injunction barring the president from changing that federal voter registration form to require proof of citizenship. We are continuing in court on all the other claims in the executive order. I feel really good about our chances because, again, the president does not have the legal authority to do what he purported to do. The Constitution is very clear. On top of our lawsuit, a group of state attorney generals are in court, also fighting the same fight. They've gotten a partial injunction already on that ballot receipt deadline I talked about. So we are fighting the fight. I'm confident at the end of the day, this executive order is going to be struck down in its entirety. But it's been a fight, right? It takes resources. It takes time. It takes the party committee stepping up and spending valuable resources to fight this fight. And they've been willing to do it. The state attorney generals, the governors across this country have done an extraordinary job of standing up too. But it's going to be a continued fight when the president's willing to just so blatantly exceed his legal authority. It's not a close call whether he has the authority to do this. It's black and white.
Right.
But then you need to go to court and get a judge to say, no, I'm going to check the president. So it's a scary time, right? That is requiring a lot of fight and gumption on the part of Democratic political committees, again, our state attorney generals, governors, who are really doing it. They're stepping up to the plate, and we're going to win, but it's going to be a lot of work.
And it takes a lot of resources, as you said. For folks who want to support that work, where's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, I'm going to put in a plug for my client, the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, doing just incredible work, standing up to the plate. We have sued the president repeatedly, not just over this lawsuit, but other places he's gone too far. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, Democratic National Committee, your local members running for House, running for Senate, running for Gov. Stand up and support them. They're fighting the good fight at every level. Use HepFlu. It's safe. And under attack. Yeah, your local state parties, I want people to donate where they feel pulled and where they feel compelled, because that voice is so important. That, the Democratic Party organizations, the candidates are really stepping up and doing that work right now. And get involved, right? I'm a voter protection lawyer at heart. And I could talk ad nauseum about the amount of effort it's going to take on the ground to organize, to educate voters, to make sure their votes are counted. So sign up and volunteer. We need more bodies than I can possibly explain. As we get closer to election year, to register voters, to make sure they have what they need. They understand these complex requirements some of these states are trying to put in place to silence you. And your organizing in your community is just, I know it's trite and you've heard it, but it's invaluable because your neighbors know you, your community members recognize you, and you can really be an invaluable asset to making sure that they can understand the voting process and get through successfully.
Such a great point. I think everyone should be like Jackie and do some voter protection work. It's really rewarding. It's really important, and you won't get paid. So it'll just be for the love of democracy that you do it. But that that does bring me into the question that I'm sure everyone asks you at every darn dinner party you go to, if you have time to even go to a dinner party, whatever. But I get this a lot, even in my work, because I'm working to raise money for these candidates, as I said, and we're very focused on flipping the House in the midterms. A lot of people are really worried that there won't be an election, that for instance, the actions here in Los Angeles are a precursor to potentially some kind of martial law and suspension of elections. And we know, I know that they wouldn't be working this hard to, suppress the vote, to gerrymander, to change election laws, to do all the things that they have to do to cheat to win if we weren't going to have elections. But
Sure.
Can you talk about people's fears of the existential threat we have facing our elections in the midterms?
Sure. Look, I think we have worried since Trump really in 2016 started this trend of this really dangerous rhetoric, right? And we know now it's way more than rhetoric, but it is not new, right? That he we worry he's going to do everything he can do to call into question the validity of elections, to toss out lawful votes. It is something we've worried about since 2016. And I remember, getting asked this question in 2020 and 22 and 24. And every time my answer is the same, which is I have been deep in the bowels of the voter suppression attempt. And every time we mobilize the bodies, the funds, the fight we need to overcome and to fix it and to make sure that voters' voices are heard, we will do it again. It's going to be hard, and it's going to take all of us, and it's going to take people paying attention at every stage of the voting process. We have to pay attention to registration. Are people being purged from the rolls when they're not supposed to be? Are registrations being rejected for no reason? Are people being turned away from the polls, right, at the voting stage and at the counting stage? Are the ballots being counted? Or are they being tossed aside for small reasons, right? You got to pay attention to every single stage. And it's going to take volunteers watching at the Board of Elections meeting, at the counting process, right? It's going to take lawyers being ready to get into court if something goes wrong. And it's going to take our candidates standing up and leading on values, but we can do it. We absolutely can. I was in Georgia when President Biden's election went into 3 recounts, right? I was there for weeks, and it was a slog. But you know what? We went in 12,000 votes ahead, and we went out 12,000 votes ahead. And it was a legal effort that is the scale of which is difficult to describe. In the middle of a pandemic, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done as a lawyer. But you know what? We won every time a count finished. Ahead, because we were there. We were watching. We were at every county making sure that the law was being carried out and votes were being lawfully counted. And we did it. We followed them right up and elected Senator Warnock. They did everything they could do to disenfranchise voters. When Senator Warnock ran in the runoff, they made lines long. They closed early voting sites. They tossed ballots for small reasons. We chased ballots. We fixed them. We got those votes counted, right? So I've seen both the amount of effort it takes, but also the fact that we absolutely can protect the integrity of our elections when we mobilize and act together. We can do it. So I am gearing up for the fight. I think people are properly nervous. We got to pay attention. You got to monitor the news. You got to know what's going on in your community and ring alarm bells when you see this, when you hear about it. But you also just have to believe that we can fight and do this, because these tactics aren't new. They're the same things that they try to do cycle after cycle. And, I only work at one firm, but I know that the lawyers of the Elias Law Group are prepared. We are ready for this. We've been ready. We have defeated President Trump more times than I can count, and we'll do it again.
I love it. I love to hear that. And the only thing I'll add to that too is the best way we can all make your job a lot easier is to win by a lot, to make these elections not even frickin' close, right? And so that's when I'm talking to people in swing districts who are looking at polls and seeing that it's like a D+1 or a D+2 seat and thinking, okay, that's cool. We got this. You gotta add at least 5 on there. Like a D+1 means it's an R+4 in district, because of what they're going to be doing. So
100%.
We need undeniable margins.
100% would love that. We'll defend any victory no matter how small, but the bigger the margin, obviously, easier. And, something else I just want to highlight that you said is in your community, right? Helping to do your part. Relational organizing is so important, right? The data we have shows that voters talking to their friends, to their family, hey, are you registered to vote? Have you checked out this candidate? Is more powerful than any TV ad we can run, right? We think we're the best. We're so good at digital and creative, and we are. No knock on the beautiful minds that make those ads. But there's nothing more powerful than relational organizing and really just community members talking to their friends and family. So don't underestimate the power of that. If you talk to 20 people and everyone does that, all of a sudden, we're winning by a lot. So don't give up on those conversations.
I love that. I tell people that all the time. No matter who you are, you're an influencer. You have a sphere of influence, and we're like ripples on a pond. We don't get to see who we impact, but the more we're out there talking about this, the bigger an impact we're going to have. So
absolutely.
So that's awesome. Let me ask you the last question then before I let you go and keep fighting on behalf of all of us. And thank you so much. I know I speak for all of us when I say how grateful we are to you and to your firm for the work you're doing. What's giving you the most hope right now?
the candidates that are stepping up to the plate and running the grassroots donors who are stepping up and giving, the fact that people are paying attention, right? The fact that we're having this conversation on this podcast, right? People are not just sitting back and letting, the horrors go by as business as usual. That is the most important thing, that we continue to pay attention. We continue to speak out, because it starts from the voters. You see the voters that then energize the candidates to step up and run, that then energize from there. So it's just, it's all of that combined. It's really giving me hope. You see it at every level. No one is just sitting down and being quiet. And I see, particularly as the months go by, we get more into the cycle, because there's always a little fatigue. But as we get more into the cycle, I really feel the energy growing. And, we're hearing a lot more about people really thinking about stepping up and running for office. And that's the best thing we can say right now as lawyers is our clients fighting back in court. Our clients are honestly more fired up than ever. And just stepping up. Every time something comes down, my phone rings and is like, can we sue? What do we do? Right? You think it'd be the other way around, me calling clients being like, hey, you really need to bring this lawsuit to fight back. But it comes the other way around. Our clients are just so eager to fight and ready to go. And again, the candidates stepping up, the donors making their voice heard. And it's great to see. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm on our side. The law is on our side, and also morality and
history
is on our side. So we have a lot going for us, and it's easy to forget that and feel downtrodden. So my message to people, just remember that we got to play the long game through the midterms. We're going to get there before you know it. And we just got to fight the fight between now and then.
Love that. Jackie Lopez, such a pleasure to meet you. And thank you again for your important work. And thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's do some listener engagement, for lack of a better word. Don't forget, if you want to call in,
maybe we should
do that.
Come up with a better word for that. I don't know.
Yeah, engagement, listener participation. How about that?
Okay.
You can participate by calling in at 818-824-4286, or you can email us at hello@practivistpod.com. So the person that wrote into us this week is actually somebody I know. Her name is Erin. She invited me to lunch a few months ago and said, I have an idea and I want to pitch it to you. I want to see what you think. And she pitched me this idea of something called Cartoons for Democracy, which basically the idea is sending political cartoons to swing voters or low propensity voters on a postcard. And then the message is a little of a, get out the vote message, but the cartoon conveys a lot of information without any words. She's talking about people who don't like to read. They maybe don't watch the news. Maybe they're not online. But a political cartoon is something that's been used for hundreds of years to sort of communicate basic facts in a very simple way. So she just launched this last week. I amplified it in the newsletter. And anyway, she wrote in and said, just wanted to give you both a good news update. Our original goal was to send 10,000 postcards to Virginia's 2nd District. This is for the November elections in Virginia. After we were in the Grassroots Connector, which is a great newsletter you should all subscribe to, on Friday, and in Chopwood Carry Water, which was my newsletter too, we sold out of all 10,000 addresses in about 24 hours. Not sure if that qualifies as good news for your column. I think it does.
Yeah,
but it certainly
totally
shows people are, engaged and interested. We had a lot of requests for education-related postcards, and I'm sure that will increase given the horrific Supreme Court decision. In any case, we will have more addresses in a few days, and we will be expanding our options because there's so much interest. We also had a lot of people contact us asking us if we're going to expand to send to their area. And if we do that, it's going to be to Pennsylvania for the Supreme Court election. So we'll know more about that hopefully by the end of the week. But it's very exciting because I do think that this is a great idea. Will it work? We don't know. But do we need to be trying things that are outside of the box and different than what we've done before?
Absolutely.
100%.
Yep.
And especially, I don't know, I've been in a lot of meetings recently about the sort of passive news recipient, which is half of the country. Half of our voters are passive news recipients. They don't go out and look for news. You have to somehow get it to them.
That's right.
This is, hey, who knows? Maybe we're reaching some passive news recipients with these postcards. So I think it's exciting.
Well, I also just love the, role that art, whether it's political cartoons, whether it's satire, music, all of that has, we really need to lean into that because nothing cuts through like that. Nothing cuts through our little bubbles, our information silos. Right. So this is really exciting. And Cartoons for Democracy, the link will be on our show notes if you want to check them out and get involved because they are busting out some more postcards. And we have to be innovative. We have to try new things. And now is the time to do it, too. So not waiting right until the election, but, getting started now.
Yeah, 100%. Very exciting. So that's it.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. Don't forget that all of the links that we discussed are in our show notes, so please don't just listen. Click those links and take action. Please do subscribe, rate, and review our show on Apple, YouTube, wherever you're finding it, and share us with your friends and family. Help us build this community of Practivists and make sure they're taking action to help us win. If you're able to support our show on Substack, we'd be very grateful for that, and you will get the coveted ad-free version of our show as well. We will be back next week with more Practivist Pod. Until then, don't forget, hope is in action.